I want to turn to something that is quite clearly in your DNA, which is working with startups, right? So when you've been, since 11, working on the, producing apps in the App Store, and then working with Kleo, it certainly seems you've grown up around the startup industry. Uh, what would you say is the easiest way to hire talent for a startup?
That's a great question, because it's very hard to do, especially now after COVID, when people have been out of work and not working as much or working from home. At a startup, I think specifically, you're looking for talent, but not only talent. You need to find people who are really on board with the idea, people who will work hard and are open to the startup lifestyle. It's a crazy job. It's not your typical 9 to 5 clock in, clock out. You're always on. At a startup, a bad hire is very bad. It's detrimental. It's the worst for a startup because you have less resources than a big company to waste. You may not have this streamlined onboarding process that big companies have. So that's going to take a lot of time to onboard. And during that time, a great hire could have been improving the startup, doing all these things. So it's wasted time, it's wasted money, it's wasted energy. So it's really important to find great hires. And going along those lines, to test the potential of new hires, I think the best thing to do is what we do at Kleo. And what we do is we have at first a short meeting with the new hire to get to know them on a personal level. And then second, we give them a test project. This project can take, a day to a week, kind of a short, simple little project. But this reflects their day-to-day skills more than a technical interview would. And it's not as scalable for a big company. But these day-to-day skills are more important to a startup. And I think this is the best way to go about vetting new hires.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole host. I totally agree with you that if you end up hiring the wrong person, A, you've lost hiring the right person, but B, you're right, it can be so detrimental to the team, to the environment, to the company, as well as a startup. So really appreciate your input on that. And I love the fact that, you give your hire a test, because this is what life's going to be like in the real world, especially in a COVID environment where they may be working from home. So speaking with the, in conjunction with how the startup world works, I understand that you are their CTO of Kleo. So tell me, in a startup, there's obviously a lot of competing priorities that perhaps your CEO will come out with. When working with your CEO, senior management, how do you kind of plan and balance the short-term commercial priorities versus the strategic product development priorities? How do you balance that?
So that actually happens. That happens a lot. It's an everyday thing that happens. Thankfully, our CEO at Kleo is very understanding, and our CFO as well. But I think the biggest thing from a CTO perspective, and anyone really dealing with the technical side, is to communicate the benefit to the end user or the productivity of the company. So one example of this would be, a refactor of code. That's basically taking something that's already working and going back and redoing it with the ideas that you have in mind currently and the goals that you have currently. Now, this is going to take like a cost up front, right? And a lot of financial people, CEOs, CFOs would ask, why do you do this? Why are you spending this cost up front? Why are you taking something that's already working and redoing it? But you have to communicate the major productivity benefit from a tech perspective. And essentially, you're kind of taking one step back to take many steps forward.
So communications and benefits. So clearly, when you talk to the CFO, it's all about, how we can help with ROI. But in communicating to the CEO, it may be sort of saying, hey, we'll get a better product. It'll have better reviews, which will mean more sales. So communication benefits definitely are what I'm hearing out there. So I appreciate that. So one of the things that I'm sure you would absolutely agree is that as a up and coming executive, the world is in a fast changing pace. From a technical perspective, so coming back to your role now, how do you go about prioritizing the work that needs to get done within the organization, both from a short-term and a long-term perspective?
Yeah. So my answer to this question is kind of probably similar to the last answer in terms of weighing short-term priorities versus long-term priorities and the technical priorities versus financial. This is easier to start up in the sense that each developer kind of has their own workflow. So in terms of prioritizing work that needs to get done, that's not as tough of a job. You know, when workflows overlap, that's when communication needs to happen. But in terms of long-term goals and adapting to new technology, I think it's all about being not only aware of the new technology that's coming out, but knowing how to utilize that in a concrete fashion. So, for instance, WWDC, the Worldwide Developer Conference hosted by Apple, and all these other conferences that unveil new technologies, we pay attention to those a lot at Kleo. Um, and we always make sure that we're not adding in new technology for the sake of just adding in something new, but we're really finding a way that it can help the product in a concrete fashion. I think that's what people need to do in general is not just add things in just because they're new, but rather find a way that these new things can really help their product.
I love the fact that, obviously going to conferences and being aware of the latest technology will actually help you internalize how you can make the products better. And in fact, maybe this is probably the right time to talk about one of your development projects, which you had a lot to do, and of course built it. And so it's called the Crowd Clips, I believe, which, if I understand correctly, allows fans to record videos of themselves and their friends and send it to the stadium, which can then in turn be replayed on the big screen. And I understand that you use some AI to automatically find the most entertaining videos based upon a variety of factors. So, first, congratulations. Not everyone writes an app like that. And I hear that some big stadiums are in communication with you to leverage this at their stadium. So, congratulations on that. And second, how did you learn how to do all this?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm really honored to be presenting it to some of the biggest stadiums and the best athletics organizations in the region. But really, I didn't necessarily learn. I kind of just jumped into it, just like I did with all of my previous projects. I had a little bit of background with my mobile games and freelance projects and things like that. But at the end of the day, I just threw myself in the deep end. I asked one of my mentors who knew a little bit more about the programming side of it. And he recommended React and React Native, which are these front end frameworks. And like I said, I just threw myself in the deep end into those. When I got stuck, I would look up articles on the internet, find YouTube videos. The internet's got all the information out there that I could ever need, really. And I started with the front end, getting a base product going, just a little MVP, and then eventually moved to the more advanced back end, which is the AI that you were talking about. And actually for that, originally I leveraged existing technology. GCP, Google Cloud Platform, has a lot of really good AI tools that I've used on there. And eventually I was able to build my own and get into it. But it was the same exact process of just going through and throwing myself in the deep end and trying to figure out what I could do.